the first amazing story about this book and about the strange connection between reality and fiction.
Mhm.
So actually, when I wrote the last interview, we made a decision in our house that even though the book is full with autobiographical and realistic elements, there was one thing that I would not go into and I would not write about, which is my real daughters, tre figlia, my three daughters. So I invented an imaginary plot in which the daughter of the character goes to a boarding school in the desert in Israel. This was in 2018. The book was published in 2018, including this narrative, which I had to do research because it's a very specific place in Israel. I had to go there. I had to speak with people. I invented this whole story. And then the book came out in 2018. And then 2019,
your daughter went to school.
My real daughter, she comes to us, and actually she's funny because we were just communicating a minute before. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to tell you something. And then she's speaking with me and my wife. And I say, okay, what? And she said, I don't want to study in our town because I'm a free spirit. I'm kind of a nature girl. So I did my checkings. I Googled, I talked with people, and I have come to the conclusion that there is only one place I want to be.
In the desert.
But this means actually leaving home and being in the desert instead of care. So, of course, my wife and I, we were kind of looking at each other, and the immediate question was, have you read the book? And she said, no, what are you talking about? And of course, this is a daughter that cannot lie. This is one of my three daughters who is not capable of lying. So it kind of, I don't know, till this day. So anyway, we said no. We said, it's too soon. She was 14. It's too soon. Let's postpone one more year. And then she waited one more year, and she said, after 1 year, I want to come. I want to go to this place. And we said, okay, start the exams. There's a lot of exams and tests in order to get to this school. It's kind of popular. So she was passing exam after exam after exam after exam. Eventually, 1 year ago, 1st of September, which is the beginning of the year in Israel, we were taking her with our car to Sde Boker, and I was kind of, I have a deja vu, like I know this scene.
So your book, it was the inverse process. Your book created the reality.
I wouldn't say it was created because she was not affected by it, but it's actually a prophecy. It was like a prophecy. And now she's now starting her second year there, and she's very satisfied, very happy. And I think it's such an interesting story because the whole book is about the connection between fiction and non-fiction. And then this thing happens. Anyway, so I'm with your husband. My heart is broken because also I have three daughters now. Two daughters are out of the house. Only one is remaining.
Only one is
only one is in the house now. I'm completely heartbroken. I'm a heartbroken man.
Because you told me about the connection between fiction and non-fiction, but I'm a little bit more interested about the connection about truth and honesty. For example, is the truth always honest, and is it honesty always truth?
I think what I was trying to do in this book specifically was honest fiction. What is honest fiction? Like, I think the best example maybe is that if I would share with you a dream, Magda, that I had tonight, okay, a dream. I will tell you the whole story, the characters, the details. That would be quite intimate and also honest, because I would be revealing something about myself, my passions, my fears, but I would not be telling you the truth, right? It would not be the truth because it's just a dream. It was not something that really happened. So honest fiction is, I think, is kind of writing about not only what really happened, like autobiography, but also what you are afraid that will happen, what you desire to happen. And of course, you saw the example 2 minutes ago. Okay, the character in the book divorces his wife, and my wife was entering the room to help us with the Wi-Fi. But while I was writing the story of their separation, I felt completely honest, because I was not writing something which is not connected to the fears I have. So I guess this is honest fiction. This combination of fears, desires, dreams, and what really happened.
Reading your book, I was thinking that you, as a writer, you have this privilege of getting a second chance, because you are you and you at the same time in the book. You know, you can have another chance for yourself.
Definitely. I think now I remember why I liked our interviews so much, Magda. I like your questions. Yes, definitely. This is one of the reasons I write, in order to have a second life, to experience the road not taken, what I haven't really experienced. But I think it also goes for the reader. The reader, and this is one of the reasons we read books. It's kind of a playground. We can experience, without really paying the price, many things. We can do bungee, we can have an affair, we can go to living to in another country. Everything is possible in our imagination, in our writing, in our reading. And then I think it's extremely important. Even, okay, it's elections day now in Israel. I'll give you an example. Okay, like it's a very political example, but this is the metaphor that comes to my mind in a day like this, because I'm highly politically involved also.
And I'm a journalist, so I really like political examples.
So for many, we had the same prime ministers for 12 years. And then at one point, I think people stopped even believing or memorizing the fact that there is a possibility in which there is a government and he's not the prime minister. Now, after a lot of effort, after demonstrations, I was part of these demonstrations. I was extremely involved. The most political thing I ever did in my life. We were actually able to switch the government for the first time. And then for 1.5 years, we saw the other way. Look, we had the opportunity of experiencing how is it to have a government in which he is not the prime minister. Now, in these elections, it's not the same. People are not making the same kind of decisions. I guess they're disappointed from the other way, or like me, extremely satisfied. But it's not the same mental state. We know now what does it mean to walk the road not taken. And now we can decide. We have a lot of comparison. Maybe the people in my country will decide tonight that they want to go back. But at least now they know, they have a basis for comparison. Of course, I will be very sad if this is what happens, but it's a different situation when you have the opportunity, either by imagination or in reality, to walk the road not taken.
Now you have this freedom. You know what you choose, because 12 years in a row, it was only a leader.
Yes, it was a very close to. There were at the end of this period, there were, I would call it, spirits of non-democratic thoughts or acts that were completely not in the nature of Israel, which is a country with a tradition of democracy. So even the fact that he lost the elections and then there was another government is already a landmark, because then we proved that the democracy is surviving. We are still a democratic place. Now, maybe he will win tonight. I don't know. I hope not. But still, we had the opportunity of feeling that democracy could change, can make a change. Demonstrations can make a change. I think it's important.
And also,
especially when you look now, when you look at the world, you see what is happening in Russia, in China, with demonstrations in Iran, in Tehran, with the students, with the hijab demonstrations. You see the price of dictatorship, and then democracy is actually about having the opportunity to say another opinion, which is not, there's more than one truth.
What I saw in Israel,
coming back, what?
Yeah, what I saw in Israel, for me, was the difference. It was a critical mass of intellectuals who spoke 2 years and 1 year ago. You, for example, and other Israeli intellectuals were more involved in changing the way that Israel was affected the democracy.
Look, it's always for an artist. It's always a difficult choice. I made my own choice. It was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I said, okay, this is too much, too important. What is happening in my country? The fact that we have a prime minister who is accused with corruption, and then he's still the prime minister. This is too important for me to make these kind of considerations, like what would it mean regarding my career, or in what way will my readers react. So I put this everything aside, and I thought, okay, I'm all in. I am writing, I am speaking in the demonstrations every week. And I felt that this is, in a way, it's for my daughters. Like, I don't want my daughters to live in a country like Russia. We are now, my family is now receiving immigrants from Russia who are escaping the dictatorship in Russia, and also the fact that he's forcing people to go to the army. So there's a branch of my family which is still Russian, and they are now immigrating to Israel because of that. They can't stand it anymore. Even though they don't have a language and they don't have a job and they don't know what is Israel. So anyway, coming back, can I come back a little bit to the book?
Please.
This is, I think, one of the reasons when I started the last interview, I started it as I thought maybe of writing autobiography, but then I got really troubled by the fact that if you write autobiography, there's only one truth. So it's much more interesting to have a democratic book, and then maybe it happened, maybe it not. Maybe it's the truth, maybe it's a lie. Let's play a game. Let's be much wider than telling my real life story. Maybe when I will be 80, I will be interested in that. But actually, I discovered in the last interview was supposed to be biographical. In the end, it's a book that made me understand that I am a fiction writer, deeply committed to fiction.
In this book, we have here in your book this exercise of confession that oscillates between objective and historical truth, personal truth, but also lies, or I don't know, falsehood. What does confession mean to you? And how many types of confessions are there?
Can you repeat the question, because the line was not so good?
Yeah, in this book, in this last interview, we see this exercise of confession, a confession that oscillates between historical truth, personal truth, but also falsehood, or if not plain lies. What does confession mean, and how many types of confession are there?
Hmm. Um, I was lately I was in Italy and I went to a church
Uh-huh.
and I followed the signs to the confession cell.
Yeah.
And I saw there was quite a line. People were waiting for the one minister to actually accept them, and there were many people waiting in the line to confession.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm Jewish. I think I would confess to a priest,
Mhm.
but I'm really interested by this idea of confession also in tres étages, in
Mhm. Yeah,
three floors.
yeah.
Like three étages were like tres étages was three confessions,
Mhm.
and this book is also in a way a confession, like trying to answer in the most honest way to questions that usually I answer with a very politically correct, calculated.
Mhm.
So okay, let's be honest, let's confess, I'll tell you the truth. But of course the question is, and it was the same in Trapiani, Tretage,
Mhm.
that is a confession the truth? Like maybe in every confession we are telling a story. We want
We
to
want
convince, we
something.
want to
Mhm.
we want something, we want to convince, we want to influence, we want to tell ourselves a certain kind of story through the confession.
We want to be the good guy
um,
in a story
Maybe
at
the
the
good
end.
guy, maybe we need it, maybe we need a happy ending.
Mhm.
So I think a confession, and also in this book and in Tretage, is not a sent act. It's an act of storytelling.
Mhm.
And this is why one of the names for this book was the storyteller.
Mhm.
This is an obsessive storyteller, that the narrator, this writer who is me and also completely not me,
Mhm.
is an obsessive storyteller. He can't stop telling stories.
Mhm. I found this powerful in your book that uh, the three good friends of the writer, they are good friends because they don't read the writer's book, so they know him like he is.
Yes,
So you
actually, when I think of my best friends, I just met one of them today. We are working. Actually, we're working on a picture,
Mhm.
which is the topic is storytelling, and he's a theater actor. So it's a combination of how to build a story content-wise, which is
Mhm.
what I do, and how to present a story on stage, which is what he does.
Mhm.
But when we met, we were 16, and most of my friends, we go back before the time I became a writer. Also, I think it's not only about storytelling, it's also about the fact that the publicity aspect.
Mhm.
People who meet me today have their own ideas about me before they even spoke a word with me. And my friends, they knew me before
Mhm.
the publicity, before interviews, before the books. They have already solidized their opinions about me based on the connection and not based on the publicity. So maybe, yeah, maybe old friends is something that you should be kind of appreciate.
You know, in Romanian language, we often use this expression, the naked truth, as the
Mhm.
ultimate truth, you know, without any clothes or any liars. In
Yeah,
French,
we have the same expression in Hebrew. Same
how,
expression.
how does it sound?
Ha'emet, ha'eroma. Ha'emet is the truth. Ha'eroma is naked.
Mhm. But can the truth be really naked?
I think there were definitely some areas of the book that I felt maybe very close to being naked, writing about them. Now, the most amazing thing, and it also goes, I think, when you talk about literature in general, not only my books and this book, that when you touch a very personal thing, when you maybe something you thought that was only yours, then the books come out, or this specific book. The amount of responses I got to this book in Israel and Italy, Israel and Italy are my bigger readerships. People reacted very strongly to the more personal and dark and naked elements. Now, things that I thought that maybe only I went through. People approached me after reading and they said, "Oh, wow, I know what you're talking about." Or women approached me and they said, "Wow, my husband, you're describing my husband. Like, this is what he's going through." So I think this is I would say, salvation about writing and reading, because you find out that if your most naked thing is not that, is also you share it with other people, maybe it's not that embarrassing. Maybe it's not that bad.
This is probably your most melancholic book, the most dystemic, as you name it, but at the same time, it's the book that breaks sadness and recompose it into humor. You are at the same time sad and making jokes. How do people, for example, what is the role of humor, especially in the Jewish culture? Can we talk if we don't understand each other's jokes? Can we be friends if
First of all, I would say it's my saddest book and my funniest book at the same time.
That's the definition of tragic.
I did a lot of readings with this book, and some of the pieces I read from this book, people are on the floor laughing. For instance, the story about the book, it's a very Jewish story. The writer is given a very heavy book by a Holocaust survivor, and he tries to get rid of it. When we did the launching of the book in Israel in 2018, my mother came. She was sitting in the first row, and my mother is a very important figure in regarding your question, because my mother is actually a professor, which her expertise is humor. She wrote her PhD about humor. She's considered an expert in humor, and she's a person who really loves to laugh. So I was reading this piece about the Marcus Rosner heavy autobiography, and she started laughing so loud that we had to take her out of the venue because nobody could concentrate. And actually, I myself, sometimes I laugh while reading it. So I think it's a combination. I don't know if it's Jewish. I felt the same way when I was speaking with Romanian people. They were kind of sad after the winter, melancholic, but we had very good laughs all the time. So I don't know. Maybe it's not Jewish. Maybe it's East European. I don't know. Maybe it's human. This is the way I was brought. My parents are psychologists. We had a lot of wounded people in our house. The fact that life could be painful was clear to me from childhood. It was not a revelation of being an adult. It was my mother had a student. Well, I just remember that because she kind of reconnected with my mother lately, but she had a student that was extremely beautiful and extremely sad, and my mother tried to help her. And I remember I was an adolescent, I was around 12 and 13. I remember her in our house. I was looking at her, wow, what a beautiful woman, and why is she crying all the time? Of course, nobody told me why, and but on the same time, every dinner we had, my mother would eventually laugh or make us laugh. So it's a kind of combination that is natural for me. It's not something I work on or think about too much.
It's like
This
a
is the way
salvation. It's like a way not to take you so seriously every time.
Yes, it's a way of life actually. Okay, I'll give you another example. Okay, I've been teaching creative writing in an international class in Scuola Holden in Torino. Now we study in English. English is not the language that I write, and it's not the language they would originally write if they had the choice, because they are either Italians or Latin Americans. So instead of making a big tragedy out of it, we kind of had fun with it. There were a lot of funny mistakes, a lot of misinterpretations, accents. I was making mistakes. They were maybe making mistakes, poetic mistakes in English, and then we kind of had fun with it. I wanted them to write a text that was full of senses, that had a lot of smell and taste and sound. So I said, I want you to write something sensual. And then they were, I see that they're not writing, and I say, why aren't you writing? And they said, well, we don't feel like writing about sex now. I said, no, it's not sex. It's just with the senses. And they said, okay. So maybe you should say sensorial and not sensuale. Okay. So language can be, you can be frustrated, but you can also, it can be very funny. Anyway, yeah.
This is this episode you mentioned of the daughter angry at her father because he wrote about her. That's turning her into a character. But how is it to see as a writer the other people through the lens of the writer? By seeing others like characters, don't you miss something about them?
Actually, I don't see other people as characters. I kind of see other people as other people. When I'm in a writing process, and actually I'm kind of writing now, definitely I'm more aware of the nuances within the people I meet that I could steal in my book. I could take them into my book. But I met, since the morning we had a family, it's elections day. So we had, one of my aunts died. So I was in a cemetery. I met my mother, met my father, met my favorite cousin, met one of the best friends of my daughter. And then I came back home and I met this actor friend of mine. I was not thinking about these people as characters. Maybe one day, situation that happened today during the memorial we had, maybe I will write about it. But you need also perspective to write about something.
So, in your previous book, I believe in English is World Cup Wishes, Simetria Dorințelor is in Romanian. You picture
Simetria Dorințelor.
You picture this, what renewing friendship of the youth would look like. The old friends slowly become estranged in their adult life. They get married and have children. But there comes the time when the children are all grown up. So there is another chance to this friendship. But I believe, as a reader, that this last interview is also an answer to the former book, because here friendship are no longer the same. You know, some already knocked down by life. Other friends have died. So, is it like in a mirror, this book of you with the former one?
Actually, I think in a way every book is a reaction to another book.
You have difficulties to separate.
Yeah, but sometimes you want to rebel against something. Okay, Scriitorul Dorinselo was published many years before the last interview. In Romania, this is the order of appearance, but actually, Scriitorul Dorinselo was published in 2007.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, but I can understand what you're saying, because since Scriitorul Dorinselo was published, I'm kind of considered the expert for friendship.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about friendship with me. And I said, okay, this guy, he is going through a time in his life when he's not full of friends. Let's do something else. And also, I think when you are in dysthymia, or when you are not, when you're very sad and melancholic, in a way you go deeper inside yourself and you are less inclined to connect. Also, one friend is disappearing, the other is dying.
Yeah.
What can you do? But I think I enjoy playing with this, not repeating the same kind of person every time.
The most powerful image maybe from this book is one in which the writer in the book, either it's you or not, goes to the Jewish colony and spends the night there because of the terrorist alert or something. There is this child who comes and sleeps next to him. They seem like they have live in two separate, worlds, and this is a connection, a human connection between two words. Are these two words in Israel irreconcilable? They know one about the other.
It depends. Elections day today. It feels like we have two
many
different
layers.
Tribes. And they're equal. Okay, maybe one will win tonight, but it's kind of a very equal situation. But from my experience, because my creative writing school in Israel is nationwide, and I have been doing workshops and visiting workshops all around the country with all the tribes of Israel, I don't feel this kind of alienation. Okay, when I come to a settlement, or when I come to a religious place, or when I come to a small town in the south, I don't feel disconnected. There are much more things in common within Israelis than separate us. And tragically, politicians are profiting from this kind of from creating this kind of grand, like a Grand Canyon, which is kind of, but it's not for real. There are so many bridges bridging the Grand Canyon that you can walk and you can meet people and you can enjoy. And half of my students, okay, not half, maybe 1/3 of my students, the recent, I would say, decade, are religious in a way. I have no problem in connecting to them, respecting the limits of their writing, and finding the common ground. So basically, I'm a strong believer in the possibility of united, or I would say not united, but a society in Israel that could profit from the differences between the people and not being fighting all the time, including the Arabs. The Israeli Arabs can be a very positive force in our country, and because of politics, instead of integrating them into our lives, we are all the time creating distance and creating a conflict. So this is the way I see it, and actually this is what we try to do in my creative writing school, which is a non-profit organization for the promotion of tolerance.
For a politician, I believe it's easier to speculate fears and hates than to speculate or to build hopes. It's easier for a politician.
Yes, I think it's very interesting. It's in Israel. It's easier. I think it's easier to win the elections by manipulating fear. I don't know. Maybe there are other places in the world where a hopeful politician can win the elections. Okay, Obama won the elections with hope,
but Trump won the election with fear.
That's true. That's true. It's hope and fear are basic human needs or drives.
Fear and
we're talking in elections day. I'm extremely worried. Maybe tomorrow I will be more relaxed. The country I love the place I live in, and I believe that this place has a huge potential. And I cannot imagine my life in another place.
In your basic profession in psychology, I know that fear and violence, aggressivity, are actually the two faces of the same.
First of all, let's make it clear. I never really finished my studies as a psychologist. I'm a writer. I can't do therapy, but I'm interested in people. And also in the society, and a lot of Israeli aggressiveness comes out of fear. And in any peace agreement that we will have in the Middle East, these fears of Israelis that go back centuries to the Jewish roots of our history, these fears would have to be addressed.
So it's like a post-traumatic state.
I think, I wrote a book about it. It wasn't translated yet to Romanian. It's called Neuland.
I know that book. It's the most Jewish book, but you are labeled.
It's actually anti-war.
Yeah, you are labeled as anti-Zionist.
It's a PTSD book, definitely.
Yeah.
So 600 pages about this.
Yeah. It's not my favorite book, the second one, because I really love Homesick. So
tell Denisa to translate it.
Yeah. I told already Jour de Miel and Homesick. You said in this book more than once that you are not a big fan of political questions. You are not a Amos Oz. He could have answered to political questions, but yet in every book that you have ever written, there are at least two themes for political area. One is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the other is the mediocrity of the political life, leaders, political discourse. In the last interview, we found the first theme, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, in this Nablus episode during the first Intifada. But my question is, and as a journalist, I found it very difficult to ask Israeli writers about that, because I realized it is not about books. It is about politics. Maybe it is not the place to discuss politics, but it is possible to write literature in Israel without touching these issues.
First of all, the reason I'm not so fond of for political questions outside of Israel is that I feel that there's it's not that important. Like, if I am asked a political question, in Israel, of course, it's much more dangerous for me to answer, but I'm actually more happy to answer. When I publish my articles, I published, can you read Italian?
Yeah.
So look for Il Corriere della Sera. I published it. It was translated. I wrote a letter to my daughter, who is voting for the first time, trying to give her my legacy. I don't know, kind of not legacy, kind of my thoughts, without actually telling her what to vote, but in a more general and poetic way. So, and I published it in Israel, and of course, and the Italians, they're interested in what I do, so they published it. But for me, it was important to publish it here, and to see the social networks are distributing my article, and people are using the article in order to talk with their young daughter or young son. This is important because we are in a political crisis now in Israel. I don't feel that it is that important to answer political questions in Europe or in the United States. I can do it, but I don't feel it's the most important element of the interview. Coming back to your question, of course, I can write about whatever I like. Tretage does not have a real political, I think it's a very global, universal
You have there
book.
some protests.
Yes, but it's not by chance that this is my most translated book. It was a movie by Nani Moretti.
Yeah.
I think there was not a real. There are demonstrations. It's right, and I'm proud of it. I was part of these demonstrations, but every book I have to make a choice. How much do I want to dig into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And sometimes I will choose to go inside it, and sometimes not. I don't feel obliged.
Yeah, there is this ongoing debate of the Russian writers and Ukrainian writers. Can, for example, Russian writers right now not to say a word about Putin? It is like a moral obligation to do something, to say something, because the writers have a voice.
I'm sure that some of the Russian writers are doing it. But you know who I really admire? Let's put Russia aside. I really admire the young people in Tehran, still demonstrating after they were killed, imprisoned, beaten up, and still they are demonstrating. This is a very, Iran is supposed to be our enemy, the Israeli enemy. But I'm looking at this picture and I'm thinking, this is admirable. Like, what, they are so brave. And so anyway, sometimes you have to be brave. I think Ukrainian people are extremely brave. Ukrainian leader is extremely brave. I think everyone thought that he would flee for the first week, and he's staying. Extremely brave. So and
I believe that this
as an artist, I think the artist, I feel that, but I can't be judgmental about other people, because maybe it's not possible. Maybe they are afraid.
Yeah, and this is almost an historical debate. Every time it's happening something in the world, here comes again this debate. Should an artist say something or not? I believe this Iranian woman have bad luck because we are so concerned about Russia. We don't have many news here in Romania, here in Europe about Iran, because Russia is more dangerous for us right now.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand it, but
it's pity.
Yeah, you should be worried.
Yeah.
It's the minute there is not a democracy and a single person can decide to go to war, just because he feels like it. No one is stopping him. It is troubling. If there was a mechanism of balance in Russian politics, a war without a reason not go through, it would not be happening.
I have two more questions. The first one, don't you think that is too much storytelling in the world? For example, we pretend that a politician should tell us a story. We pretend that a journalist should tell a story, not a news. The news are boring. The story is more interesting. There are many, many schools of storytelling.
I think one of the reasons I wrote the last interview was the exact thing you said right now. I felt like enough of storytelling. Everybody's telling stories. For once, let's be honest. Let's tell the truth. The non-aesthetic, brutal, not narrative truth. Let's break the narrative. Now, on one hand, this is my most adventurous book regarding the structure. I don't think it would go or would pass the storytelling, the American way of storytelling test, the way this book is telling the story. Completely deconstructed.
The American computer test. Yeah.
Yes, it would not pass the test. So on one hand, it's a rebellion against how to tell a story. On the other hand, every little piece in this book is a story, a well-done story, it's like a well-built story. So I guess both drives were happening inside of me and are still happening. Let's stop telling stories and be honest, but what a beautiful creature is a story. So beautiful, so powerful. How can we live without it? So yeah, I guess you could feel both elements in the book.
Yeah, there has been a pandemic, so you weren't able to travel. We say in psychology, we say that the travel is the opposite of depression. If you are depressed, you should go outside and travel. Did you miss traveling?
Yes, actually, I'm so sad I couldn't come to Yashi. Had some problems back home, and it was not possible for me to come. And I wish I would. I could have come, and I wish and I want to come again to Romania. Usually, when I travel, I'm also story hunting. A lot of things happen when I travel. So I kind of, yes, I did miss it. I went a lot to Italy because there was, during the pandemic, Trappiani was exploding in Italy, and I think it sold more like 200,000 copies, or at least on the way to 200,000. And then so I did travel to Italy quite a lot, even during the pandemic. But I definitely was missing, and I am missing traveling to other places, other cultures. I hope 2023. I hope to come back. If
you have many readers also in Romania. We don't have the sun like Italy has it, but you have many.
No, I know the book. I know the translator told me that there were nice reviews on the book, and
you like more to ask questions than answering questions. More to, like Heidegger. You know, Heidegger said once that a good question is more important than the answer.
Actually, I started. It's funny that you're asking, because 1 year ago, I started doing my own radio program which is broadcasted in like the Israeli Rai, like the I would say the national radio, and basically in every program I interview two people, and I'm the one asking the questions, and I like it very much.